Good afternoon, everybody. I'm back from SA on-road titles, where I ran the FFV4 for the first time in a competitive environment against some of Australia's best. Craig Marshall, can't beat him. He's quick, and my mate Nick, my mate Theo, Jamie from Bendigo, mental blank, a couple of the guys from Geelong as well. But happy to say, after some teething problems on a Friday, where I had to accommodate the chassis itself to a very different track to what I normally run on, which was pure asphalt, not a painted surface. Plus also it had on camber and off camber corners, and that was a bit of a head fuck, let's say, trying to get around that. Finally figured it out at the last moment, and then at the last moment, and racing being as it is, basically my tyre warmers shat themselves. So instead of running the tyres that I wanted to run, which I know I could get going once I worked out what I had to do, but with the help of Nick Michaelides, we went to 28s on the rear, because without tyre warmers there was no chance of trying to get the car stable to run. So 28s on the rear, 36 on the front, and the chassis was brilliant. Short of the driver stuffing up a couple of opportunities, corners, little things like that, there was the glaring possibility of becoming third overall for the event, even though we only raced on qualifiers, because the rest of the meeting was actually cancelled on the Sunday. No finals, no fourth or fifth round or finals were run because of the pending weather. It was playing havoc with decisions that the committee had to make. Unfortunately, that's how racing goes. But the car itself, the FFV4, in its current form with the independent rear end to conform to rules that have been around for a while and, personally speaking, need to be addressed and looked at, but that's another question. It was fantastic. Glued, capable, no warmers, just a bit of grip on all the tyres, front and rears, the 36s on the front, which were the black 36Ms, and on the rear, which I had to run, were the 28s. Volanti, which made the car stable without being able to actually heat up the tyres at any point. Gearing ratio was wrong at the start, as myself and Craig Marshall figured it out. Reese Marshall, let me rephrase that. Reese Marshall had to figure out with Craig's dad that the FDRs we were running were all wrong, so I had to pick an FDR to work for a bit more speed. Infield was fantastic. Down the straight was like chalk and cheese. Cars passing me down the straight, and I'm thinking, why am I so slow? We've got the same controlled motor in ESC, which is a 13.5 fixed timing hobby wing with the ESC adjust stock, fixed timing, and the car was slow. Well, gearing was way out, let's say that. So once established that and got the right gearing, or a gearing that I thought would work, no problems. Car was fast. It was predictable, it was straight, short of the driver cocking up a couple of corners and taking out the right hand front on the rubber hosing that was used for the barrier. God, that stuff sticks. When you hit it with a wheel, it'll just rip it off, which is what it did. So I had to fix that. So I lost one heat, had one really good heat and two mediocre. Fourth overall, happy for it. Biggest thing on the chassis that I would do, looking at this afterwards, is take the weights from I did put weights at the bottom of the arms. Don't ask why, it's just something I tried to do. Should have taken the weights from the bottom of the arms to the actual brace itself there, and put the weights here to put more weight further back on the chassis. You don't have to run, in the class that we run, we don't have to run big packs. This is 6800 and it's heavy as F. But I reckon if I ran a 5200, the car would be lower to the weight, which is 1250, and be a bit more nimble. It was heavy, it was about 70 grams overweight. Decided to go from the 48 DPI to 64 DPI, and for this particular class, I just raced an FDR that would work for the car on the track. Mind you, you will have to change and play with that depending on the track that you're running on, whether it's tight and nippy track or a very big flowing track like SA was. Settings on the SC are pretty much out of the box. There's not much you can do for those. You've got to leave them as it is. Ride height on the front was 5'4". Ride height on the rear from here was 5'6". So I ran the car quite low, you could see, because it was scraping on the front on heavy braking. Shockers on the front were 575 CST with a 7-hole piston. It's just the way I like how it feels. You can run the standard out of the box with 450, which I think from memory 3 or 4 hole, can't quite remember. Rear were kit standard shocks, and they were 4-hole with 450. Gold springs on the rear, 22mm in height. Silvers on the front, 22mm in height, non-compressed. I ran the old Racing Trident system on the front just to stop the possibility of it reefing backwards, but when you clip your wheel onto a rubber hose, it's going to rip it off anyway. It doesn't matter what you do, which is a pain, but it is what it is. So the droop was then, because you can't measure your droop on the rear on the standard format, which is your arms with the block, flat on the chassis on a flat surface to the center of the actual wheel axle is 22mm to the ground, and on the front was 20mm. Car worked really good. No bump steer at all, basically no shims at the bottom of that whatsoever. That's pretty much. Oh, the only thing I do run, because I don't, personally speaking, and this is nothing to do with what SNRC and RACE have done with their pivot ball suspension system on the front of the actual, on the arms, basically front and rear, is that I run either Axon cups or Shoei cups. My preference, they're just a lot easier to work with, and I can change them at any time if I need to, so I prefer to do that. I ran the Yaris body from Blitz, which is cartoony fantastic, which was that one. That was the Yaris body in cartoony black lining and what you call it, aqua blue, aqua green colour. You could see it a mile away. Stickers as normal, wing as normal. Bit of scuffing damage on the front here and there, but that on the big track was brilliant. Nice and stable, dead straight line every time. Didn't have to try and chase the car with steering to keep it going or all that type of stuff. So Yaris Blitz body was brilliant on the car. Set neutral, not forward, not backwards. I prefer this method of manning the bodies, which is basically the big brace at the back and sitting on top. But what this at the back is, it touches the back of the body just as you put it on. You can actually have it adjustable with this at different lengths. They're just body posts. What I find is it holds the body nice and true on the back. If someone bumps you, it doesn't want to fold it in, all that type of stuff. So that worked really good. On the rear, on the top, it was second from the bottom. So the mounting of the shock at the top on the actual tower was second from the bottom. On the front, it is the hole furthest out. So nearly vertical, not quite. It works better that way than it does if you drop it in, as I found out. Change that and the car changes dynamics immediately, and it was fantastic. So happy with that. So cover the oils. Pivots, yeah, I prefer to run those. It's just my preference. Radio was a W Fly, which was a new radio that I was gifted to try out. Works fantastic, no issues all weekend. Easy to use, touch screen, all that type of stuff. More reviews on that coming up soon. The wires I ran over the top. You can run them through the tower there, or basically through the tower there to the motor. I just like it like that. One thing that I would do on this, definitely, and proved a benefit for Theo, who's running the same chassis, is the grub screw for your steering. Oh, you can't quite see it because the wires are all over the place. But the grub screw for the steering, which is that one there, and the grub screw for your bell crank down the bottom. Now there's two holes. You've got a grub screw to lock it and another grub screw to sort of lock it into place so it can't move. I piffed the 3mm grub screws where you've got to use 1/2mm driver, because you can't get enough force onto the actual head of the grub screw to tighten it down. So I've used buttonhead M5s, 5 and 6s on this. A 6 on the top and 5s on the bottom, so it gives you more a bit more ability for you to tighten it really tight. So when you get to the point where it bottoms out on the flat, on the little pivot pole itself, you can just nip it up a little bit more. Definitely, without questions, use blue Loctite or something similar. Don't use a red, you'll never get it apart. You'll have to heat it up to do so. Definitely Loctite, so the screw cannot move. And there's no chance of it slipping or otherwise. That's locked it in really nice. It does not move. Take it apart, wrench, easy, no problems at all. Works really, really good. But definitely M5 and M6s button heads to replace the grub screws that are on the steering posts and the bell crank at the bottom, which is the one just under there, that one under there. Definitely do that. Piss off those grub screws. They're not really that crash hard, unfortunately. The other thing that I found out really good is this particular servo arm here, which is a very flat one on the servo. That's actually made by Bisma or anyone similar, but it's a 25 spline, dead flat. It runs flat across the top of the actual top deck itself, but it's a lot stronger than the plastic one by a country mile, and with a bit of a spacer underneath the actual ball for the actual, and space underneath the ball for the link itself. Perfect, no problem. That works better than the plastic one really, really well. Can't complain enough. Well, sorry, can't comment it enough. It does really good things. What else? Oh yeah, obviously at the front, the bumper foam to make sure that the body sits hard up against that and doesn't have that tendency to go floppy down backwards. The shocks are raked back on the top, so they're from the pivot down the bottom. I've got a 2mm spacer down underneath on the pivot, so there's 2mm, so the shocks still sit back a little bit. Works. It seems to make the car more compliant. Really nice to drive. So no spacers at the top, 2mm spacer at the bottom. Lock it into place. Done. Sway bar standard out of the box. I did change it, but then I changed the back, and it seems to work a lot better. Fan also, instead of the carbon brace, which moves the actual fan a little bit more forward and down, I've just used a single bolt straight onto the motor mount at the top and out of the way. It's a lot more solid. It doesn't get in the way of any of the bodies that I've tried, so try that one. So get rid of the carbon brace, do that, run your wire down, all set and ready to go. That is it. I talk a lot, I talk fast, but this is the car from the SA titles. I cannot commend it enough. It was fantastic. Driver made too many little errors and didn't count on tyre warmers not working at one point. Other than that, brilliant. Can't say it enough. Just brilliant. It works so well. Next time out will be Bendigo in about 3 weeks' time, something like that. So Bendigo at their classic, and we'll see how we go on that one. Other than that, it's all good. So chassis, electrics, tyres, blah blah, will stay the same, maybe change. Body will be the YRS by Blitzy out of Blitz Australia, which is Mr. Vincent Chu. I got those in stock and they are brilliant. I have chassis in stock with the conversion kits supplied as standard in the kit, so you can run it with the dolphin end on it, or you can run it with the independent rear. The car performed identical with the dolphin end or with the independent end. The only thing I found out that was very different, which I forgot to say at the start, was that with the flipper, if you tend to ride curbs a lot, it actually moves the chassis. The chassis does move up and down. It doesn't have independent between either side. With the independent rear end, that side that rides the curb does that. The side that does not do that, it stops the chassis from actually tilting over. On a flat surface, dead flat, no big curbs or otherwise, the flipper works really good. This is good if you're going to run curbs, if you're a curb runner like me sometimes. But you can run it and set it up and run it either way, and it's a quick 20-minute flip over to actually change it. So don't be afraid to try it. It does work. And why I tend to make it so it's so easy to do is the actual ESC and the actual receiver on a plastic plate underneath the servo, so they both stick down onto this plastic, held in place left and right so it doesn't move with double-sided tape. So that's loose, and if I have to change the actual chassis, I want to try the flipper version, It's just as easy as replacing all of that as one unit. Just undo that and drop the new one on. No need to double-sided tape anything off. There you go. I've spoken enough. Done my blurb. The car was fantastic. Driver let himself down on a couple of corners. Could have had a third, had a fourth instead. Congratulations to the guys in front of me that won. They were better on the day, but we'll give them a chance and see how it goes. All in all, had a fantastic time. Thank you very much to the crew at SA and the guys that I hang around with, which are fantastic. Real good company. Got to try RC car racing. It is a big boys toys weekend away with great company. Take care, guys. Catch you around. Catch you next time. Another video coming up soon. Who knows when or where, but it'll be another one. Take care.